Welcome everyone to the May edition of the Better Break on skincare from cosmetics to toxins. I am Marwa and I'm here with Crystal. We will be your moderators for tonight. Off screen, we also have Anna, who is moderating the audience questions. If you have any questions, please leave them in the Q&A if you are in the Zoom. If you are watching via YouTube, you can leave your questions in the response sections. Anna will select your questions and we will try to answer as many as possible during the talk. And if necessary, we will answer the rest at the end of the talk. For those who are unfamiliar with the Beta Break, we are a student-initiated discussion platform of the Faculty of Science of the UVA, where we host monthly panel discussions on a broad range of subjects within the natural sciences. And now Crystal will tell you a bit more about the structure of this edition.
Yeah, so today the edition is on skincare, and we will mainly focus on facial skincare and on sunscreens. And as maybe throughout the event, we sometimes use the word cosmetics. And since cosmetics have a slightly different meaning in Dutch and English, we want to emphasize that in this context, we mean skincare and not makeup. We divided the talk in 3 topics, and we will start with skincare in general. We will discuss some myths and facts about skincare, what does work and what doesn't. And then we will move on to the safety of skincare, the safety on the environment and on the human health. And we will end by discussing some regulations and then mainly about how to put screens or skincare on the market. We are very happy to have 3 very nice panelists today. We have a PhD candidate Helene Gibbelaar, we have Professor Marie van Deursen and Dr. Ronald Wely. And I will ask them to introduce themselves shortly. So Helene, can you maybe start?
Thank you, Crystal. So indeed, my name is Helene. I'm currently doing a PhD in complex fluid systems at the University of Amsterdam. And actually, when you think about complex fluid system, you can think about all your cosmetic products. So mainly like the skincare and the hair care products. For example, a shampoo or a cream is already a complex fluid because we added something extra to the water. And I mainly study how these fluids flow. So, for example, also when you're rubbing a cream on your skin, you're creating a flow, and we need to know how such fluids start to flow. So that's what I'm mainly doing in my PhD now. Before that, I studied chemistry also at the University of Amsterdam, and I did a master's in nanomaterial science at Utrecht University. And during my studies, I did several internships at L'Oreal, where I worked for example, the Nutrix cream of Lancôme. And at Unilever, I studied a new type of shampoo. And next to my PhD, I'm now also making blog posts on Instagram where I explain the science behind cosmetic products.
Thank you. Maybe Marjorie can take over.
Thank you. So welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm Marjorie van Deursen. I'm a professor of environmental health and toxicology at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. I'm also head of the department Environment and Health, where we look at the impact of environmental contaminants on human health and the environment. And in my research, I mainly focus on the human health effects, specifically or for a large part, looking at endocrine disruption.
Thank you. Ronald?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for inviting me as well. My name is Ronald van Wely. I'm the director of the Dutch Cosmetic Association. This association is representing companies bringing cosmetics to the market. And I'm immediately going into the definition of cosmetics. As you just said, Crystal, cosmetics are a very wide range of products. Basically, it's all the chemical products you use on the outside of your body. So from soap, toothpaste, deodorants, skincare products, SPF products, but also makeup, of course. That's also a wide range of different types of products. I'm mainly responsible, I'm the director, but today I'm responsible for scientific and regulatory affairs and doing all public affairs work on behalf of our association. We are the Dutch association, closely linked to the European association, because the European legislation for cosmetics is European. So it's not a Dutch treat, but it's really a European process which we are part of all the time for regulating cosmetics as chemicals in the market.
Thank you again for being here. We are really glad. And let's start immediately with the first part about cosmetics and skincare routines. I would like to start with a bit personal questions, namely, what is your skincare routine? What do you use? And maybe you can also shortly tell why you use those products. Elaine, maybe you will want to start also again.
Well, thank you. Well, there's sort of, I mean, well, not necessarily a basic standard routine, but in general, it's very widely accepted to first wash your face. So that's what I also mainly do. And then I mainly focus on having a gentle cleanser. So that means that you don't have any sulfates or other more harsher surfactants in the soap. And then also, just to start, indeed, that now I mentioned I use a gentle cleanser which doesn't contain sulfates, but that doesn't automatically mean that all other products which don't contain sulfates are more gentle, but I think we will also discuss that later. And then I mainly use a serum, something like either a retinol, which is vitamin A, or a vitamin C. And this is mainly actually to fight against photo damage. And that's also because afterwards I either use a moisturizer or a SPF, because here I mainly focus on the damage from the sun, actually from UV light, as this is one of the main factors which contributes to aging of the skin. So I would always say try to prevent, and that's what I try to do most, actually, prevent damage from UV light.
Thank you. Ronald, do you recognize this?
Oh yes, but I have a completely a different start for choosing a specific product. I never realized you could start with looking for a gentle cleanser and moisturizer. My experience, my personal experience, is that I like the smell of the product most, and the rest of the aspects are more are less important to me. I like the products of L'Oreal Expert, the men products, because I just love the smell of it. I think, and we know as cosmetic manufacturers that the smell of a product is very important for consumers to select a product. Of course, besides all the other aspects and all the product specificities, but the smell is very important, and also to me all the time. Yes.
Well, that's quite funny, because I usually use products without a pure perfume because I hate the smell of cosmetics. So that's a personal preference, I guess. Yeah. But I just to answer your question, I also use a cleanser and a cream, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. And we already heard a lot of ingredients and a lot of types of skincare, like the retinol and the vitamin C. And what is actually working, and how does this work? And I don't know, maybe Helene, you can tell something about this?
So here, well, your specific question, if you want to know whether cosmetic products work, I think here in this case already a moisturizer, so something a quite simple product consisting out of either just a mixture of oil and water, which are most creams, can already, if you just apply that to your skin, can already do a lot, because it will already start reducing the water evaporation from your skin. Also, if you have a simple something like an occlusive ingredient like a silicone, which is in your skincare, which is in your cream, this is already also counterbalancing the loss of water evaporation from your skin. And then there are lots of ingredients, like the active ingredients or the functional ingredients, like a vitamin C or a vitamin A, the retinol, which have proven scientifically that they can reduce, for example, photo damage. Or there are also peptides, which have proven to to react with cells and stimulate other biological processes. So I would say that definitely there are lots of skincare products which can contribute to healthier skin, I would say.
And then I hear a lot like photo damage. Is that the thing in skincare that you want to prevent from, or want to sort of cure photo damage?
Yeah, so I always say, like, if people ask me, okay, what can I change about my skincare, or what do you recommend? I also say, well, first of all, put some sunscreen on, because all the other products which are going to try to actually resolve the main problems, you could have prevent them already by reducing the damage from UV light, actually. So I always say, okay, fine if you would like to use other products, but also do something against photo damage.
Other question about the vitamin C and some other ingredients you mentioned. What if you have a healthy diet? Then do you still need to put this stuff on your face, or would that be enough?
Well, for example, if you really specifically mention the case about vitamin C, so I mean, in general, we know all from the earlier times what happens if you don't take enough vitamin C. But in generally, I mean, if you just have a normal diet, you have more than enough vitamin C in your body. But actually, some science prove that also some topically applied vitamin C can actually also, even though you have enough vitamin C in your body, also contributes to reducing photo damage. So with lots of supplements, etc., I mean, it's very rare that you have a deficiency in something like that. And if you would have it, you should discuss this with your doctor. But besides that, I mean, if you topically apply something, so more locally, this can still contribute, although you have enough of it in your body. Yeah.
Okay. So we think about, like, there's sort of an excess in the top layers of your skin or something that will, I mean, to me it sounds strange that you have enough vitamin C. I mean, maybe one of the other speakers can do know something about this. That you have enough vitamin C, but you still can.
I think it's very simple. If you have a specific product which have a built-in transporting system, that's the oil water mixture and the specific how it's put together, you can transport these active ingredients to the cells you want to reach, and you can reach them, I think, more easily or with a higher dosage than from inside of your body. Your body might have enough vitamin C's or other ingredients, but you can reach them also from the outside. So I think that's the reason these products, let's say, work or are efficient, or your skin benefits from it.
And can you then sort of make your skin lazy out of it? Because this is something we sometimes hear that if you use too much skincare or too much of these products, that your skin can get sort of lazy and you need it all the time.
I've never seen the proof that your skin can become lazy. I've heard it before, also especially with lip care products, that your lip become lazy. But I don't know. I have no proof of. I've never seen the proof of it, or what you mean by lazy. But my name Helene knows better.
Well, what I would say here, that would means that the body has a feedback mechanism against that, or something, that it knows that when the ingredient is applied, it should stop doing something. And I think that's very rare that there is such a feedback mechanism for something which we apply. So also what Ronald is saying, like, if there's not a scientific proof for this feedback mechanism, which I could not just think of it, that something would exist as a response to a product, then yeah, there is no evidence for it. And that's something maybe just also funny to mention here. That's also what most people think about, like, washing their hair. There is this myth going on that people say, or well, some brands even also promote with this, that if you wash your hair too much, that means that your sebum that you start to overproduce sebum. That it's saying that when you remove, like, the natural oils from your hair or from your scalp, that will start overproducing this. This would mean that your body can reply to or respond to your shampoo. I mean, and that's not the case. Your body, your scalp doesn't know that the sebum is removed by the surfactant system. So in the end, that's also this myth actually, which is going on, and it's not regulated by that, but it's regulated by something which is called surface tension, and the shampoo cannot affect that. So this is another example why I think there is not such a feedback mechanism existing from a cosmetic product on your skin, actually, on your scalp in this case.
I'm not really sure if I agree with your choose of wording, but that may be because you say the shampoo cannot cause that, and maybe not directly, but by removing the natural surface layer, that causes your body to give a reaction. So it kind of is in how you phrase it and what you find in the definition of the shampoo cannot cause it.
But then you would mean that, because this is actually shown that it's only the surface tension which is causing your sebaceous glands to produce this sebum. Mm-hmm. So how could your body know that? It's removing it, but then, so the shampoo removes the sebum, but then the surface tension just keeps on going actually. And it's not necessary, your body doesn't know that it got removed by the shampoo.
No, but it does know that it is removed. So how you remove it doesn't really matter in this case.
But it stops. So your production of sebum stops when the surface tension cannot balance the pressure anymore. So, it keeps on going till there is too much of it, and then it stops because of the surface tension. Mm-hmm. So, that's not regulated by the surfactant, by your shampoo in this case.
Yeah, well, I think it's a semantic discussion here, but there is definitely a regulatory mechanism, and you call it feedback. And I think, well, it's a homeostatic system that you have, and that you can disturb that by adding an external factor. And if you, whether that's shampoo or whether you scratch your skin too much or whatever, it changes physiology.
And that's what you perceive, I think, the change of physiology, and that you respond to it. But I think it's also your own feeling that you need to wash extra or wash less or have a dry skin because the sebum is removed. So I think it's a semantic discussing as well, because there's not a direct feedback mechanism, but the skin fauna and flora perceives that it has changed. And then, well, the body responds to it or not, it depends.
I think I agree partly with what Mayuri is saying, because maybe it's not exactly that kind of feedback that the skin knows that there is a certain shampoo, but I notice for myself when I wash my hair often, like daily, then I also need it because I literally can see that's more oily. And when I don't do it, then it's like when I leave some days and I see that I also don't need it, then at a certain point that I also can skip some days. So there is some feedback, maybe not necessarily because of the shampoo, which shampoo you use, maybe because you're touching your hair too much, or?
Well, Bart, it's actually interesting because that's also often very misinterpreted by hair care cosmetics, that it's very difficult to have your own perception of such a thing, because your hair, also, for example, something which is affecting the hair a lot is the humidity. So you have this idea that your hair is differently, for example, by this shampoo, but it's very hard because there's so many other parameters which can control this, how you perceive your hair. Maybe you touched it a little bit more the other day, maybe you brushed it, which also helps to the sebum spreading through your hair. So this is what I often very much see, that people, for example, say, okay, this ingredient is not working for me because I think it's for example causing buildup of making my hair heavy, but there's so many other ingredients in the product as well which can also affect this. And well, in the case of the shampoo, it's they have mainly studied this in a laboratory and saw that it's not the shampoo, but it's the surface tension which is affecting it. So yeah, for me, I don't see how it's possible that you experience more oil production.
But
I mean,
yeah, if we take this because it's a detergent, right? The shampoo. If we take this back to the skin, it's often said that it's not so good for your skin to use a lot of detergents on it. And this actually, I think you said it in the beginning as well, that you don't use soap, too much soap in your cleansing.
well, for example, depends on the type of surfactant you have in such a soap. So the surfactant is something which can bind to the oil and to the water. And then you have also different types of surfactants. You have, for example, the anionic ones, which are they have more cleansing capacity, but they have a difference on harshness and mildness on the skin. So you can choose within them to have, for example, for hair care in general, a more harsher ones is used if you really want to remove the sebum or the other buildup of products. But you can also choose for like a more milder one, which are often also more expensive.
And using the surfactants on your skin doesn't make it less, doesn't make it dry, because that's something I sort of experience, and I think that's the whole hair takes it a bit to the whole hair discussion now, that you sort of make it drier and then.
Well, for sure the surfactant, if you have a more harsher surfactant, can affect the dryness of your skin. Indeed, often it's also counterbalanced by other ingredients in the formula, which can make it more milder. So that's definitely, that's also a difference between many types of soaps, and they have different surfactant systems. So yeah, they will definitely differently impact your skin.
And what is this micelle water that's now all hip and happening?
For example, you have the micelle water, which is so it's those surfactants which I mentioned, those ingredients which can bind to both oil and water. They can form all kinds of structures when you dissolve them in water, and one of the structures is the micelle. And this is actually funny because it's a very scientific actually term, this micelle. At a certain concentration, you add enough surfactants and they start to form these micelles. And so they actually applied that also, or they started to name the ingredients also, the products also like that. Well, that's the micelle actually.
The micellar water. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually just a very fancy word for soap water.
Yeah, it means that there are surfactants which have a certain conformation in your product, and then they also started to call now with lamellar water, which is then another type of configuration these ingredients can make in a solution.
Okay, I think before we start to move on to the toxic part, maybe we have some questions that we can get. Someone is curious about. Oh, all right. The use of tretinoin cream as an anti-aging cream. You know about this?
So that's sorry.
It's vitamin A, right?
Oh.
Is it vitamin A? Okay.
Yeah, so you have all these types of vitamin A's, actually, these retinoids, which we call them. And then they have all these type of different, how do I say it? Well, configuration not, but they are just chemically slightly different. So but they will all convert to retinoic acid in your skin if they want to do something. And the tretinoids are then those are often also in the USA more medical drugs. And then they are converted by the body. And for example, retinol needs 2 steps before it is in the retinoic acid state. So it's a type of vitamin A.
And would it work against anti-aging?
Yes, there's lots of evidence that those vitamins A's can, for example, also increase collagen, but also work against photo damage and anti-wrinkle indeed, yeah.
Well, generally, of course, vitamins are useful to capture free radicals, so reactive oxygen species, and those are all kinds of byproducts of processes, and also can be caused by sun UV light that cause damage to your cells. So anything that will protect you and capture this can protect you against cellular damage. And of course, aging is just damage to your cells, more or less. So, but if you have too much, so don't all start using too much vitamins, because vitamins themselves, if you have too much, they can also start producing these free radicals, so they can become harmful themselves. So like Helene already said, if you have a normal diet, you should have sufficient vitamins in your system to capture all these free radicals.
Yeah, we had another question, maybe that's a bit towards your answer. It says that in a book, the book is called Anti-Wrinkle Complex. A researcher states that retinol and peeling stimulate wrinkles because your skin responds to the processes calluses, just like in your feet.
That means that you got calluses on your face?
I actually don't know what calluses is.
Peeled?
Okay. So this is not.
Well, your body has a natural turnover, so you have cells that die and they get replenished, and especially your skin is very good at that. So if you remove that skin, that makes it feel a bit soft, but it also stimulates the production of new skin cells. So it's a very dynamic process, actually.
It's a dynamic process, and I don't forget. I think tretinoine is more used in medical products, so it depends strongly on the concentration and the type of vitamin you use before it's activated. If you have to deal with a cosmetic product, or it is a treatment which is prescribed by a dermatologist. So in general, these cosmetic products are very mildly formulated compared to doctors' prescribed products. So, so you see a strong difference in effectiveness between these types of products.
Okay, yeah, we have a lot of anti-aging questions actually, and maybe we can move some of these to the end. But we have one other very interesting question which we didn't talk about it yet, and that's about the hyaluronic acid, the HE.
Hyaluronic acid, indeed.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. And if it's really effective or not. And maybe Helene can tell something about the effectiveness of HE.
So a nice question, because I actually started my PhD with studying this ingredient, and then mainly how it flows actually. So what does it mean that how does a cream look like when you have hyaluronic acid in it? So how does it differently flow on the skin then? So which is mainly interesting first to say that hyaluronic acid is very important in your body and keeps your skin supple, which actually means that, which is also an interesting thing of your skin, that, I mean, you can stretch your skin slightly, but you cannot stretch it into infinity actually, because at a certain moment it starts to stiffen. And luckily it starts to stiffen, because otherwise it would mean that your skin, I mean, would even maybe start to break at a certain point. And this is actually why we have all these terms like hyaluronic acid and collagen, why they are so important, because they make sure they have this network formation and they keep your skin supple, so elastic till a certain point, and then it starts to stiffen. Otherwise it would break. Otherwise your skin would break, for example. And this is also why we always say to use a sunscreen, because also UV light degrades collagen and hyaluronic acid. So this is actually where the cosmetic industry started to be very interested in hyaluronic acid, because they observed that it's so important for the firmness of your skin, and it can hold up a lot of water, which is also another interesting property. But then the question is, of course, does it do the same for your skin when you apply this ingredient in your cream? And that's a little bit the question. Because for sure, you have with hyaluronic acid, you need to distinguish two types: low molecular weight, which means that the molecules are much smaller, and a high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. And so this is something important to know from your product, whether what it's going to do. Because if you have high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, the ingredient cannot penetrate into your skin. So it will just only stay on your skin, where it can also do a lot. I mean, for example, it can moisturize your skin because hyaluronic acid can hold so much water. So it's important to have, also that's another tip, like if you use an hyaluronic acid product, make sure it doesn't matter if your skin is already still a little bit damp, if there's still a little bit water, because this is actually good for the hyaluronic acid, because it can attract that water from the environment, and in this way hydrate your skin. So that's something for the high molecular weight. It does definitely work. The question is just, there are also other more cheaper humectants. We call those products ingredients humectants, which can do the same thing. So that's up to you to decide how much you want to spend on something. And then you have the low molecular weight hyaluronic acid. This means that these molecules can penetrate into deeper layers of the dermis and possibly trigger a biological process there. So those are the two things.
One last question before we go to the next section. You said there are other molecules that can do the same. Can you mention some?
Glycerol is a very cheap and good humectant.
Urea.
Oh, yeah.
Urea is also very good. So it's very specific chemistry with all these different types of molecules, whether they are active and at what level and in the skin they are active, and how they can contribute to the skin processes. It's a lot of chemistry in it. Yes, people normally do not realize, but I'm glad Helene explains it very well.
And I think then we have a very nice bridge to the new topic, because all these chemicals, are they good for us, and are they actually good for the environment? And there we want to start with the toxic part of the talk. And to start off this part, I want to do a poll with the audience. So everyone look at your phones or your tablets or computer where you're on, and I will pop 3 questions, which we will discuss later. So the first one is,
maybe you can read the question, Crystal.
oh yeah, is it better to use raw products, raw skincare products like fruits and etc.? And the second one is, are parabens bad for your health? And we have one which says natural products are better for the environment and health. And the last one is a myth or a fact. The term dermatological testis is proven that the product is safe to use in sensitive skin. And this one we will discuss later. And I will wait a little bit, because I see the votes going up.
I think you can continue, and then we can discuss the results later. Oh, there are they. Okay. So 40% think that's better to use raw natural products. Are parabens bad for your health? 57% thinks they are. Natural products are better for the environment. 50% thinks it's true. 50% think it's false. And dermatological tested is proved that it's safe for your skin. 86% thinks it's a myth.
So yeah, let's start off with sorry.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Can everyone see it? Yeah, so start off with the safety. Is all these chemicals, are there like some of these chemicals which we can consider are not so good for us, or because we hear a lot of there are some chemicals with a bad reputation like silicon or parabens or BPA, or some perfumes as well, even some sunscreen ingredients. Yeah, has someone something to say about this? Is it actually an ingredient? Is it actually something we should be scared about? Maybe that's a better question.
Oh, let me start with it. Or Marjorie is also here. She's also top of this subject. It's just what you just said. It's the perception of if something is toxic or not. I think the basic condition of every product is that it should be safe for user. It should be safe for the end user. I think that's well guarded in Europe. And of course, cosmetic products do contain a lot of different ingredients. So every manufacturer have to carefully consider the safety of the ingredients you use. And you should look, of course, to the specific effects of the ingredient, but also to the dose and how consumers use the product and how the combination of product which is used. So he has to carefully evaluate and come to the conclusion that the product is safe, or if it's not safe, he has to change it or not market the product. So in general, I think we do not have to be scared for using cosmetics for our health.
Well, I sometimes have maybe a bit different definition of what is safe. So that's, I think, where we may have some discussions at some point. If your question is, should we be scared of all chemicals? I say no, of course not. The chemicals can also do a lot of good things, but I do feel that some chemicals are not well investigated and are not really necessary, so we don't really have to use them. And if you think of how chemicals are being assessed and what is considered to be safe, then I think that sometimes we're not looking in the right direction and do not take all pieces of the puzzle into account to come to a conclusion.
Do you have maybe an example of this? Is there something happened maybe in the past that there were ingredients used that later weren't considered safe, for example?
Well, coming from the corner of a lot of endocrine disruption, I think that's a good example in general, because if you look how the science has evolved over the past years, when we look at these types of chemicals, we see that we consider, well, you just mentioned bisphenol A or parabens, but the way we look at it now and the type of evidence that we see, because we can look better or we know where to look, that has changed a lot over the last year. So I think it's an increase of insights, but that's definitely causing us to reconsider some of the chemicals that are on the market.
But for example, when we are talking about these parabens, for example, I don't even know what kind of molecules these are, but I have the feeling that they are bad because a lot of commercials or products is like market like without parabens. So then I think, oh, apparently it's something bad. Is that true? Like, for example, with parabens or sulfate or silicons, are they better to not have them in your skincare products? Because I think a lot of people are now trying to avoid those things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it's my job to respond to that. I always explain to all these companies, you shoot yourself in your own foot. You say it's without parabens, so you create the perception that all parabens or all silicons or all formaldehyde or whatever, without or free from claim, you create the perception that the ingredient constitutes a danger. But of course, not all parabens are the same. There are parabens which we agree are safe for use, and we agree that some parabens, just what Marjorie said, are not well investigated enough. So we do not use them because we are not sure, so we can't use them. So with creating this this claim of free from, really these companies shoot themselves in their own foot. But okay, there's a lot of marketing behind it. I don't like it because it's very confusing. I prefer that producers inform consumers about the real risk and warn them if a product is risky on those specific circumstances, instead of saying what's not in the product, because you can list endless numbers of ingredients which are not in the products. We use more than 10,000 different ingredients, and where do you start? So you create your own myths and your own problems in market. But that's the short-term vision of a marketeer versus the long-term vision of a toxicologist. And I agree with Marjorie. It's new scientific developments which make us understand that things are less safe yesterday than we think today. If you look in 30 years, what we did 30 years ago, you cannot believe that we would ever do that again today, because we realize that substances, specific uses are not safe. It's not only for cosmetics, but it's also for food. And I just saw last week a photo of me as a baby, and my father was smoking next to me being fed. And this 60 years ago, it was just healthy to smoke. It's unbelievable. Of course, we change our insights, and our scientific knowledge increases on a daily basis. So and we have of course adjust the products to this new scientific knowledge is also on a daily basis to follow science in what is safe and what is no longer safe.
But it's also incredible to realize how much the use of chemicals has increased over the past years, and how much we anticipate it will still increase in the years to come. So yes, it's a difficult comparison with 30 years ago, but it's also hard to imagine where we are heading. So I think that we may have gone a bit too far in the number of chemicals that we're using. And I don't say that they're all harmful at all, but Ronald's talking about risk all the time. And when you talk about risk, you take exposure into account. And for some chemicals, I think we should look at the hazard. So what is the chemical capable of doing? And there is no threshold for some chemicals, and there is no safe limit for some chemicals. And those types of chemicals, they should not be in consumer products, in my opinion.
And Marjorie, how do you see it then? Because we take into account the accumulation, also many the studies which are done and then also approved by the SCCS. So then you say for example, those existing chemicals, which they have done many studies and showed that even if you use, for example, that many products a day, which a normal person doesn't do so many years. So do you then mean that those studies are not well executed or not well performed? Or because most ingredients which are now regulated and are allowed they took into account many things actually.
Yeah, but also a lot of chemicals are taken off the market again because they have not been investigated very well over the past years. And if you talk about SCCS, who does the cosmetic ingredients, of course, so it's the industry or the chemical producer who has to provide a safety dossier, and there are certain tick boxes that have to be filled for a certain chemical dossier. But it is also that some chemicals that are regulated under the cosmetics regulation, and now we go into the next topic already, sorry for that, are also regulated under the chemicals regulation REACH. And there you see that completely different portfolio or dossier and types of studies are being done, giving, I think, also sometimes a completely different picture of what's going on. So yes, of course, there is a certain evaluation, but if you think again about endocrine disruption, I think the way that the SCCS is dealing with that is not the way it's being dealt with in other chemical regulations. So for pesticides and biocides, and also not in REACH. And I think that's a missed opportunity. And I personally, from a scientific perspective, I do not agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And why would the SCCS, because they are also there for human health. So in such a sense, why maybe this is there for Ronald to answer. I mean, they are there for us actually, or for the human health, I would say, and they are also, I mean, that exist out of independent people often.
Yes, you said we will use more and more chemicals. I start doubting that. I think the future is using less chemicals. I think Europe presented its Green Deal with a chemical sustainability strategy. So Europe should be more safe, according to our Commissioner Frans Timmermans. He presented that last week again. No, and it's a serious try to make Europe safer with respect to exposure of the environment and consumers to chemicals. So that's the first big step. It's all in the Green Deal. You just said, Marjorie, if there is no safe limit, I mean, for carcinogens, there, for example, we have no safe limits, and that's the reason they are not allowed to be used in cosmetics. These most hazardous chemicals, these chemicals of very high concern, they are just not allowed to be used into cosmetics. So that's a very good safeguard clause in the regulation. If it's classified,
but that's only one specific type of mechanism, right?
Yes, of course. If it's classified, then we cannot use it. So and if a producer cannot guarantee its safety, because a producer has access to and the data in REACH and the opinions of the SSCS, and it's just the end responsibility of a producer, of course, to make a final evaluation. And I think I agree with Elaine. The SSCS is there to evaluate human safety, and I think they have access to also to the REACH data, to the hazard data of the product. That's the start of their work. And of course, there are a lot of gaps in dossiers and missing information, and ingredients come and go from time to time, and they have to be additional research is necessary. But that's the way it goes. And in general, I think our projects are very safe and become even more safer with every day.
Can I add to this? Because is a chemical like considered safe until it's proven not to be, or the other way around?
That's a good question.
I have a kind of an opinion about this since I'm from the chemist toxicology.
So the idea behind the chemical regulations in Europe is that it is not allowed on the market unless it's proven safe.
Okay.
But that means there are tens of thousands of dossiers still in the backlog of being evaluated. That means that there are still hundreds of thousands of chemicals that have not been evaluated. And it also means that it's going one by one on a very slow pace, so that historical use is very often also a reason to continue certain chemicals.
I have two questions about this because, okay, so how do you as a consumer without the toxicology or chemistry background know what's safe? Because, okay, these ingredients are in different products, and some products market like we don't have this certain thing because we think it's bad, or we market like that, and others have these ingredients. But how do you as consumer how can you distinct what is safe or not?
Well, that's a very simple answer. You should not bother with safety as a consumer. You can read all the ingredients on every single product, and of course you can add them to Wikipedia, and you find the most scaring and horrifying adverse effects of every single ingredient. But it all depends on the dose and how you use the ingredient. And of course you use a mixture of ingredients in very low dose. So an ingredient listing of an ingredient itself doesn't say anything about the safety of the product. Of course, we regulated a lot of ingredients because we know, for example, from preservatives, we say till this level, it's a functional level and it's a safe level for consumers. So we have many, let's say, maximized ingredients to be used, and so that because well, it's very convenient for Europe to have the same level of use, a safe level of use regulated by law. It gives us a level playing field. But as a consumer, you cannot. You are just not able to judge the safety of a product or not. You can only say, well, I do not like silicones. Then you could at least select a product without silicones. Or if you say, I don't like parabens for whatever reasons, or you should not use a product with parabens. But most people who read the ingredient list are people with an allergy. A dermatologist test ingredients on patients with allergies, and they know I'm allergic for type A, B, or C of ingredient, and they can carefully avoid the products containing these ingredients, so they can do their own risk management basically based on the ingredient list. And I think that's the only functional use of the ingredient list.
Do you, Helene and Marjolein, agree with this?
Sorry?
No.
Well, I agree with the stickers and labels of this is compound X free. I think that's well, you don't know what if compound X is not in it. Maybe it's YZ, A, B, or C. So I think that's a kind of a strange safety idea that people perception that they may have, that it may be safer. I do think that I always read the labels, but that's also because of my profession and I know maybe a bit more about it. I also see that if you are a normal consumer or if you're not a toxicologist or do not have a chemical background, these are very difficult to read labels. So actually, I agree with Ronald on this. You should, as a consumer, you should not place a burden on the consumers. So I think as a consumer, you should be able to feel safe with the products that you're buying. But I come back again to my earlier statement. I have a different perception of what is safe than maybe some chemical producer is, for example. So I do read labels and I do not buy certain products, especially if they are for my children. So that's but that's a bit of a choice that I make.
And if we, since we sort of conclude that it's regulated whether or not good in the Netherlands and Europe, we can also buy stuff from AliExpress or other Chinese or Korean sites on Korean markets. So is there something we can we consider that safe, or is there something we should look at, like, okay, if this and this is in it, don't buy it?
I'm not sure specifically about cosmetics, but if you buy it on AliExpress, it's not regulated by European law, and then there are chemicals being used that are not, sometimes not allowed, well, very often not allowed on the market in Europe. So that's definitely something that you should be careful about.
I think so too. You can shop around the world today via internet. I think compared to other regions like the US, the Asian countries, I think we have the highest safety standards in Europe. I think we have the best developed safety strategies for products. So I think it's very risky to buy in these regions. What Marjorie said, often they come with ingredients we do not want or do not like, or not even allowed on our market. But as you can buy without borders today, you can use and buy these products. But we always say you should be very careful. But again, it's very difficult to evaluate if a product from China contains ingredients which are no good for your health, or which are not are regulated, which is not allowed to be used in Europe. As an individual, as a consumer, it's very difficult job. Our competent authorities, the NVWA, the Dutch Food and Safety Authorities, have serious problems with that as well. If they buy products via internet, it's a lot of work to separate them into safe and non-unsafe products based on ingredients and concentrations. So,
well, we have this list, of course, of substances of very high concern. So if that is being measured or detected in some kind of consumer product, then that will be removed from the market for sure. But
well, what I mean, I can understand here that it's difficult to read an ingredient list here. Actually, an advice is, in such a sense, stick to a reputable brand, which are often very much regulated. And even sometimes a lot of people criticize the big brands, but they are so looked at and so strictly regulated. So in such an advice what to do, stick to a reputable brand. And sometimes these big brands are put in a bad daylight, and I don't agree with that, because they need to, I mean, if you look at the L'Oreal or Unilever, they have their own microbiology test. They have so much research going on there, and so much testing.
But they also have a very high economic gain. So I'm not in favor of promoting that the bigger brands are safer than the cheaper brands, if that's what you're suggesting.
Oh,
And
no,
I
not
agree that
necessarily.
these manufacturers, they do a lot of research, but again, like I said, they also have a very huge economic gain. So
yeah, but then if I mean, they are often criticized for stuff, but then if you have a smaller, I mean, they check their own products so often. I mean, they're also asked so many times for their regulation, and how then if, I mean, I would not say necessarily a smaller brand, because a smaller brand can also, it depends on how much research or information you can deliver yourself, I would say there. I mean, if you don't have any, of course, you can know a lot of things from suppliers, but the more data you can deliver about your product, yeah, the more it can be checked in such a sense.
if you provide the right data. So if your effect is over there, when you look over there, you don't see your effect. So you have to provide the right data, do the right tests, and do the right science.
That's true. And then, but they also have, I mean, they also reach out to a very big population. So, I mean, if they make a mistake in either their microbiology test or something, they're also affecting a lot of people, and that's also not good for the brand. So
That's true, but you only think about microbiology, and we also discussed the carcinogenicity and allergies, and those are all quite very well established studies to do.
yeah,
So that's a very basic set of tests that you can do to do that. The
I
problem is that
think-
the chemicals are becoming more and more complex. And you also talked about the hydrophilic and the lipophilic and the surfactants. And these are very difficult types of chemicals to study, which means that it also becomes a very complex and interesting studies to figure out what kind of biological effects they may have.
but then who's going to fund that actually? Who's going to do that research in that case? Then it's like either the human health or something which needs to start doing that.
Well, I think that's a very good question, because now the manufacturers have to provide the studies. But if you look at the science, academia is much further ahead in the type of studies that we can do, but the regulations are very lagging behind.
And then also again, academia will probably not have the, oh, sorry.
Sorry, what about, there's now a whole market with natural products, because the chemicals are being more complex and people don't really trust it. It's maybe bad for you, bad for the environment, because there could be microplastic or something else in it. So people are now, there are also some brands that say we have only natural products, or people that make their own products by using, for example, only raw products like fruits or stuff. Would this be the solution? Are natural products really better than the chemical products? I see already Helene.
You also say
No, this is so, also when I hear you saying do it yourself stuff, people, this is dangerous doing, I mean, making your own product without preservatives in it. You're not also making your own sunscreen. That's absolutely not a safe sunscreen to use. And then I mean, natural, that's one of the terms I really can't stand actually. Also, for example, the idea of selling a natural sunscreen, I would never put a natural sunscreen on my face actually, because that is what I would say dangerous. Now here we refer with the natural
What
sunscreen.
do you consider to be natural sunscreen then?
Yeah, so what brands advertise or promote as natural sunscreens, then they often call them minerals. So the metal oxides, the zinc oxide and the titanium dioxide, this is marketed as natural. I mean, these type of ingredients are always chemically processed. They always contain, for example, a silica layer around the particles. So, I mean, this is not, that's not a natural, but that's how it is sold actually. And natural products are actually not, I mean, doesn't matter, it doesn't say that they are more safe, I would not even call that they are better for the skin.
But maybe for the environment, because if you, make your scrub yourself, and in your scrub there's sugar, and in the scrub of the you could buy in the market maybe is microplastics or stuff. So maybe not only for your skin, but maybe then for the environment, because I can understand that for your skin it's better to use maybe the chemical ones because they're like fine-tuned. But for the environment, all these chemicals coming into the environment couldn't be, in my opinion, this is not the best solution.
Well, chemicals and microplastics, that's a very different type of discussion maybe, or so that's broadening the horizon tremendously. So I'm not sure if we will have time to go into that. I do agree that microplastics are the next new, or maybe not the next, it's already an ongoing black box that we have to deal with. So we find them everywhere and we don't really know what they're doing in terms of health effects. If you talk about chemicals in sunscreens, for example, titanium dioxide is also a chemical that's under assessment and regulation. So yeah, is that natural? I don't know.
No, I think it's very simple. Nature is a big chemical factory as well. It's nature runs on chemistry, and we have only I think a small understanding how clever the chemistry in nature is. Natural products have to comply with the same regulation as the other products, so there's no distinction between natural product and other non-natural cosmetics. It's all cosmetics. It's a claim. You claim that you derive your ingredients more from nature than from chemically manufactured. But what Helene said, if you use titanium dioxide and you coat them, because if you coat them, you can process them better, they spread better, they protect you better. Is it then still a natural product? It's a lot of discussion always. And if you like natural products, please start informing yourself why a company is saying it's a natural product. Look behind the screens on internet and try to find out, why do you call this a natural product? Look what type of ingredients in it. And there are many different specifications. There are many standards. There are many international standards. So it's a world in itself. But it's very interesting.
And natural also doesn't mean better for the environment. Then we need to look at sustainability, and that's also very complicated. Sometimes people do natural because it's better. They think it's better from the environment. But if you look at this whole discussion from palm oil and coconut oil as well, what we need to use, we say, so something, if you think about palm oil, most people say, okay, that's natural, that must be good. But that's not, then we have the problem with sustainability actually of sourcing palm oil versus, and then we start up, okay, let's say coconut oil, and then we all ban palm oil. But coconut oil is not more sustainable than palm oil. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Natural does not mean necessarily better for the environment, or yeah.
So you have to look at the choices a producer makes and why he claims it. It's very important. And this is also the reason that cosmetics is the most interesting field to work in, because you have to deal with all different types of things.
But based on your answers, I would say that this claim is actually more a marketing claim about natural products, and then it's a real claim because there's no real definition of what a natural product is, or is there?
That's the problem. It's a lot of labeling, I think. So I don't know. It's the same as a paraben-free. That's a label that's not regulated. And the same goes with natural or eco-friendly, or we don't have many of these regulated labels. The same goes for the sunscreens that are reef safe or something like that. So it's really good if you want to use a product like that, that you look where it comes from behind the scenes, and if you check if the label is actually a regulated label and it's a certified label.
Do we have regulated and certified labels for skincare?
If there are there are many labels regulated. Paraben-free is not allowed, so that's regulated. You are not allowed to make a paraben-free claim. And you asked Amara on the natural claim. I think many small companies, and that's very interesting, are really dedicated to make better products, protecting the environment, reducing the environmental impact, and they call them natural products. So I would not say all the natural claim is per definition a marketing claim. Really, there are very serious smaller companies have really a strong focus on doing better. So it's worth looking behind the scenes and getting look more into detail with what companies when they claim.
That's a good thing what Ronald is remarking, that's about how they source their raw materials, for example. Where do they get that from? That doesn't have, I mean, that's now linked to natural, but I think that's something interesting. Like, how are we going to source our raw materials? Maybe biotechnology is a very interesting point here. But that's more the sustainable brands there who do better.
Sustainable, yes, indeed. It's sourcing, it's preservatives, it's paying fair prices, it's charity, it's social aspects, it's many different aspects. Which
also the plastic waste, indeed, like what type of material are they using, but that's not necessarily about natural. No.
So there are a lot of questions from the audience about environment, and maybe we can discuss a few and then, due to time, have short answers. So someone is asking, Marloes is asking, how much impact has the cosmetic industry on the environment compared to the other cosmetic industry? Like, does one of you know that? Like,
what do you mean?
Sorry?
What do you mean, the cosmetic industry compared to?
Other toxic industries. What's the impact on the environment?
Let's say in volume-wise, we do not a lot. I mean, the chemical industry produces tons of chemicals, which we use only a tiny part from. But of course, typical for us is that once we have used them, it's going to the water treatment plants, or it evaporates to the air. So we are a diffuse source, and we all use. So it's hard to compare. You cannot say one is better than the other.
Okay, and then another question is, what about natural products like avocado oil or olive oil or chia butter or something like that? Like, can you consider them better for yourself and for the environment? Or is it, again, like, what's the resource and is it sustainable?
That depends very much on the sourcing. That's what I just mentioned with coconut oil as well and palm oil. That depends also on where it is sourced from, indeed. And then for your skin, I would not say, like, how do you compare this is better or not? Like, to what actually, or to... Because is this better for your skin than what is such a sense?
Yeah, so it's very difficult. I mean, it has to do with life cycle analysis. So where does it come from? How much energy does it cost to transport here? It has to do with how many chemicals are there, what's used in the supply chain. I think it's a very difficult general question to answer, I would say.
Maybe also the popularity of the oil. I mean, maybe coconut oil wasn't that, the sourcing of coconut oil wasn't that bad in the past, but now it's so popular and everyone wants it, and now it becomes more.
So that's then the problem, actually, because it now appears that it's not better, it's not more sustainable than palm oil. And but for example, for palm oil, there's this round table who starts to not regulate, but started to get more sustainable palm oil. So that's something you can look for, actually. Buy products which source their palm oil in compliance with the round table. So there are more initiatives for doing this.
It's always a risk to phase out one oil and we all step to the next oil, because then the next oil becomes a problem. I think diversity is the solution, because we are with so many people, we need so many products. The volumes of soya and palm oil comes in, and coconut oil comes in is huge. So if you only have one of these sources, then it's no longer sustainable. You cannot make it sustainable. And like we said, for palm oil, there is an initiative to source and produce it more sustainable. And of course, you can select producers which use this sustainable produced palm oil.
This is a really interesting topic, I think, and we have a lot more questions, but because of time, maybe we should go to the closing up. So maybe we can just ask one or two more questions about the regulation and then finish this edition. Crystal, is that fine?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so the regulation, Ronald, is actually a question for you. When can a skincare product be put on the Dutch market? When it's...
Oh, that's very easy. If you comply with all the regulations, you are free to put it on the market. You don't need certification. You don't need control. It's very clear what you have to do, and you are free to put it on the market. If as long as you follow up all the requirements which are specified in the cosmetic regulation.
I read somewhere on the internet that you do have to send the file or upload the file cosmetic to the cosmetic products notification portal registration.
Yeah. That's Europe has a portal which is very efficient. You have to register your product, so that's one of the requirements. So you have to list your name, ingredients, and who's responsible. In case there's a problem in the market in Europe with that product, our control authorities, the NVWA in the Netherlands, can just check where the product comes from, who's responsible, what's in it. So that's for a quick reference. So it's like a telephone book with all the products listed. So that's one of the formal requirements you have to fulfill before you bring a product to the market. But that's an administrative issue.
And if we go back to the poll question we asked was about dermatological tested, and if it's if it says dermatological tested, that it's actually better for sensitive skin. And a lot of people said no. And what do we think about it, or what do we know about it? Is dermatological tested better for? Is it also, if it says dermatological tested, does that mean that the outcome of the test was positive?
No, it means that it was dermatologically tested under supervision of a dermatologist. And that it doesn't say anything about the outcome. It's that simple as it is. A lot of companies ask dermatologists to test their products just to check for any side effects or adverse skin effects. And the dermatologist comes to the conclusion, well, it's okay, I haven't seen anything. So then we claim it's dermatology. It's tested by a dermatologist, so dermatology tested, yeah. But at least you cannot claim it without doing a test without a dermatologist, because then you make a false claim.
Yeah.
But aren't all skincare products dermatological tested?
No, you don't have to. No, if you put a mineral oil, how do you call this, Vaseline in a pot, then you can just sell it, and you don't need to test it. There's no dermatology test needed.
So it's a bit of a empty claim.
No, it's not an empty claim, because the company decided that it wanted their product to be tested by a dermatologist, which I think is very useful, just to have a guarantee that the product is safe to be used. And of course, dermatologists often use these products on very sensitive skins, not most of the time not on normal robust skins, but on very sensitive skins. And if the product is fit for this sensitive skin, it's normally fit for use by all consumers.
And then it also, I mean, the test the dermatologist would do doesn't, I mean, chemists or physicists who make the products as well would do so many other tests which are important. So yeah, I mean, there are also many other aspects which are in such a sense important.
Yeah, if you are take a famous brand, I just use as example Beiersdorf, which makes Nivea. It's a brand which already it's 80 years old, I think. So they have data which the data set on this product and the development of the product over the years, which is immense. And they do all kind of tests, all what is available. Also tests with dermatologists to ensure the safety, the performance, efficacy. So it's not a single test companies do. They do a lot of different tests and compile that to a data set to evaluate on a continuous basis the safety of a product or the efficacy of a product.
I want to ask every one of you a short question. Well, the first one's for Ronald. What is the worst claim you heard about skincare products? One that, like a claim that is actually not true.
Oh my God. The worst claim. I have to think about it. Just.
Okay. Then Helene, there's a lot of information about skincare, and like I said before, not every one of us is a chemist or a toxicologist. Like, how can people stay informed and understand more about which ingredients work and don't work without having to read all these scientific papers that they might not understand?
Well, this is actually sort of also at the same time a big problem, because there's lots of nonsense out there on the internet. Because what would you do, right? If you are interested in something or you want to know, nowadays you start Googling it, right? I mean, that's what most people do if you want to know something. And then luckily they're starting lots of scientists also being online. I mean, starting to explain stuff. But this is one of the biggest problems actually, which is that there's lots of fear mongering and things which are not true being said on the internet. So I would say find a reputable source for your information if you want to know more about cosmetic ingredients. And don't believe everything what's on the internet.
Like your Instagram, right?
Well, if you find me a reputable source, you can indeed follow me on my Instagram account.
And what was the name of your Instagram account again?
It's Science Meets Cosmetics.
And then one last question to either Marjorie or Ronald. If there was one thing you can change in this brand that could be better, what would that be? In this brand?
Oh, you're muted, Ronald.
I've got my worst claim and what I would like to change. It's if the product claims not tested on animals, that's complete nonsense nowadays, because animal testing is not allowed on in Europe. So I would like to if people still think that we test on animals, that's really not the case. It's not allowed. And
well, you don't give the order or you don't ask the applicant to do animal studies, but many of the chemicals that are in cosmetics are indeed tested on animals. So that's.
Oh, and sorry, Mara, one thing I often read on the internet is that it says 60% of what you put on your body is absorbed by the body or something. I mean, those are things which are also often said. Your skin is very effectively in keeping things out. I mean, it would also mean if you take a shower, that the skin is very effectively it's hydrophobic, so it doesn't absorb all the water. So that's one of the claims. When I see a natural brand starting saying that, I always think that's so
when you add
true.
a surfactant, you break down your barrier of your skin. So it's a bit more balanced than that, I would.
Well, a surfactant, I mean, it maybe remove some lipids there, but it doesn't break the structure of your skin, the barrier of your skin.
It does.
Well, in some, maybe I would like to know then in what extent it does, because there are also lots of lipids and it would protect, because then in the end, like if you keep on using it, then what would happen then?
We really want to go into.
So I really like to.
We can talk about this for hours, because we're also.
We normally do, yes.
Yeah, but because of time, we have to end, and I think we can talk for hours indeed. And I really like the discussion. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for watching, all the audience. And yeah, sorry.
Next beta break.
Yeah. So I want to say that the next beta break will be in the second week of June, and it will be about entropy. And then we talk about entropy from all different kinds of natural studies. So if you're interested in it, please check out our website, which is betabreak.com. or .nl, sorry, or betterbreak.org. And yeah, we will see you next time. Thank you all. Bye.